Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. If you like that intro, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the video. And if you're currently on the floor having a seizure because of the flashing lights, well, good luck. But today, as you can tell, we're going to be talking about a very cool upper receiver from Bear Creek Arsenal. Now, I've done videos for them in the past, and for the YouTube sensor watching this video, we're not talking about a firearm, we are talking about an upper receiver, which is not a firearm, and this is in its original configuration, exactly as it came from the factory. But before we get too deep into it, if you would like to help out the channel in any way, you can join my Subscribe Star down below, which is basically a pro to a Patreon. You get a lot of extra content every month, and you get entered into giveaways. This last giveaway, we just gave away an SBA 3 brace to one of my Subscribe Star members. Also, if you want, I own my own company. We manufacture steel plates. So if you like target shooting and you like shooting at steel, that link will also be in the description for some of the best value plates on the market. Also, really quick, I did want to mention that Bear Creek Arsenal actually sent this upper receiver out to me. They reached out to me a little while ago and asked me, hey, what sounds good to you? What do you want to review? So I actually got to select this one for review because, of course, I really liked the feature set that it has, and we'll get into that more in the video. So what exactly is this upper receiver? Well, first off, as you'll notice, this is a AR-10 upper receiver. This one here specifically is a 20-inch barrel chambered in 308. This is also, as you can notice, is a side charging upper receiver, which is a lot different than your standard rear charging ones. It comes with some interesting, cool things that you can do with it, and a few quirks as well. Now let's go ahead and we're just going to go through some of the basic specs, and then we'll talk about how it's shot, some of the accuracy, and then kind of my thoughts overall on it. So let's go ahead and start out with the Bolt Carrier Group itself, which of course is on a side charging handle, which means that you cannot remove it without removing the charging handle itself, because of course it will just slam into the rear of the receiver without coming out. So right here we have our Bolt Carrier Group. It is a very Mil-Spec-ish Bolt Carrier Group. It actually has a slightly lighter profile cut in the rear, which in my opinion is really nice because I do like to have a lighter Bolt Carrier Group. It has your standard holes on the side for expelling gas, and really it's very simple. The staking on the gas key is actually a little bit different than Mil-Spec. It's actually done from the sides to give it more contact area on the actual screw itself. The screws are YFS or YHS, I think, so they're not quite as strong as the grade 8, but I have not had an issue with them. In terms of cleaning this is my first time actually taking the Bolt Carrier out since I got it. So this is after about 500 rounds of steel case and a few brass and some match loads in there as well. And it has been 100% reliable. Even a very basic, simple Mil-Spec Bolt Carrier Group can be very, very reliable as long as it's assembled properly. So really what you're looking for in a Bolt Carrier Group, specifically on the bolt itself, is you want to make sure that your ejector pin has quite a lot of force, because of course it has to send a very heavy 308 shell, hopefully far enough away to not cause any malfunctions. And what you have here is I'm using a key to push it down, an extremely strong ejector pin, as well as a extremely strong extractor. So whatever sort of springs that they're using in there are high quality enough to provide consistent extraction and very powerful ejection. Most of the time, these will launch a case about 6 or 7 feet away from the user, which is really good. On some other AR-10 Bolt Carrier Groups, you know, you'll get them just going a foot or two away from you, and it's very weak ejection. This one here has very strong ejection, so it's good quality springs, good quality ejectors, all that sort of stuff. So even for a very basic Mil-Spec-ish Bolt Carrier Group, it has worked really, really well. There is some minor wear and tear, and as I mentioned, I have not cleaned it, so it is very, very gross, and it's a little gritty right now. So after about 500 rounds is when you should really start cleaning an AR-10, because they do require a little more TLC than 5.56, specifically AR-15s and 5.56. It's just a much more dependable platform for long round counts. So after about 500 rounds, it is very, very gunked up and chunky to get that bolt moving in and out. So it does need to be cleaned and lubricated again, but it has ran exceptional up to this point. So now we have our charging handle reinstalled, so you can of course use it as a forward assist as well if you need something, and it actually works as a forward assist, whereas a forward assist on an AR-10 is kind of hit or miss most of the time. Even on an AR-15, it's not the most needed thing in the world, but on an AR-10, something like this, where it's a more finicky, you have a lot more pressure going on, you also have much bigger, much stiffer cases. Sometimes it is nice to have that extra leverage for either ripping the case out of the chamber, or of course using it as a forward assist, clearing malfunctions, that sort of thing. And another nice thing about the charging handle itself is it is quite tall, so it gives you a lot of surface area to grab onto and to pull it out. It has good knurling on it, not super aggressive knurling, but it is good enough. Now, as you'll see in the intro, I did a lot of really close, really fast shooting. I put about 200 rounds through it in under an hour, and it got very, very hot. Now, my normal securing method for the charging handle is to just Loctite it. So I use blue Loctite to get it locked down, and it does not move under normal firing circumstances. It will not loosen or anything like that. But Loctite, when you get it to about somewhere between 400 and 500 degrees, turns to dust and no longer works as Loctite. So after 200 rounds in about an hour, getting it very hot, uncomfortably hot. Now, of course, the Bolt Carrier Group is one of the hot spots on a DI system because, of course, you do have hot gases flowing through it. So after about 200 rounds, getting it very, very hot, that Loctite did disintegrate. And so the charging handle started to come a little loose. I just torqued it back down, and when I actually go in and clean it all out, I will, of course, torque it back down with some Loctite in there, and then it will be good to go. And under normal shooting conditions, target shooting, long range shooting, hunting, or anything like that, you're never going to have an issue with the charging handle because you're never going to get it hot enough. Moving forward from the Bolt Carrier Group, we have our next most important component, which is our barrel. The barrel, as I mentioned, is 20 inches long. It is 416R stainless steel. It has a 1 in 10 twist, and it is chambered in 308. Now, a 20-inch barrel on a 308 is about the sweet spot in terms of length and velocity. And really, with 308, it is a cartridge that's not the fastest cartridge in the world. It's not like 6.5 Creedmoor. So when you shorten up a 308 barrel, you do lose its long-range performance. So a 20-inch barrel in 308 is a 1,000-yard gun if you really wanted it to, but its most effective range is like 0 to 800 yards. So for a long-range gun, now it's not really set up as a long-range gun right now, you could easily stretch this guy out to 800 yards or beyond, of course, if you're a skilled shooter. 20-inch barrel is a very good inch for 308. If I'm going shorter than 20 inches, then I'd rather have something like a 12.5 where it's very fast and maneuverable and can still go out to 500, 600 yards without any issues. But if I'm doing a long range 308 or something that I'm not running and gunning with all the time, I would rather have a 20-inch barrel. Now, the barrel itself is a mid-weight profile, which is like a tuned up or a tuned down SOCOM profile, I should say. SOCOM profile barrels are very, very heavy. They're basically a heavy barrel. But this one here is a middleweight profile is what they call it. And it's basically like if you put a SOCOM profile barrel on a diet and you just left it with just the bare essentials. Now, this one here is also fluted. So this is a straight fluted barrel, and I believe it has 5 flutes down the barrel. So you have straight fluting on the first section in front of the gas block, and then you have a taper to this thinner section on the end where it, of course, also has 5 flutes all the way down. The machining quality on the barrel is really, really nice. Fluting does cut off some weight, which I do like, but it does also tend to decrease barrel rigidity. So I'm a little torn on it. Now, talking about the barrel, really good velocity out of a 20-inch barrel, very, very high quality machining. The barrel looks excellent. The flutes look awesome on it. So it's a very aesthetically pleasing barrel. But the accuracy on it was also fairly good. So even though I'm a little torn on fluting, whether I like it aesthetically or whether it makes sense for lightning, or if I just rather have the extra barrel rigidity, in terms of accuracy, right out of the box, I put 6 rounds of 168 grain Sierra Match King through it. 1 to see where it was hitting, and then a 5-round group. And a 5-round group was just under 1.5 inches, so fairly decent for right out of the box. Had never been shot before, maybe only once or twice in testing. Then put another couple hundred rounds through it, and I really didn't have any good ammunition to test it with because I shot the last of my 168 grain Sierra Match King. I did have some 158 5-grain Hornady Black AMAX ammunition, which it didn't really like. It shot at about 1.5 to 2 inches, which this will also shoot Wolf Military Classic. They're 145 grain at 2 inches at 100 yards, which is very, very good. So I would imagine with heavier loads, you can get this down to their rated 1 MOA because, of course, Bear Creek Arsenal, if you don't know anything about them, all of their 16-inch barrels and longer, they give a 1 MOA guarantee. So With this system, I am sure that you could get down to 1 MOA. I just didn't have the match ammunition to do it. Now, I will be shooting this more and more, so I will, of course, put out a video if I just can't get it down to 1 MOA, although I'm sure with 168 grain or 175 grain with your really nice match loads, you could absolutely get this down to 1 MOA. Now, I was not able to take it out to really long range. Now, I know in the intro I showed a lot of really close-up shooting and a lot of run-and gun style stuff, but most of the time this was actually shot from the prone, from a rest, at longer distances, or at shooting targets, or at shooting groups and that sort of thing. So basically, for most of the time, this was set up with a 3-12, and right now it has the primary arms 1-6 ACSS Aurora reticle. But most of the time it had a UTG 3-12 on it, and I was shooting it anywhere from 300 to 400 yards, depending on where I was shooting at. And it was just very, very boringly easy. I think in a couple of videos I'll show you, I was doing like 5- and 6-round groups inside of like a 4-inch circle at like 300 or 400 yards. So it's very, very easy to shoot exactly where you want to. Even with cheap ammunition, even with stuff like Wolf, which shoots surprisingly good, which is good because I have a lot of Wolf. Wolf Military Classic, like I said, does about 2 inches out of this gun, which for ammo that I bought back in the day for like 28 cents a round is a really good deal. So overall, I'm very pleased with the barrel's performance. I think that the fluting on it looks very good. It's very aesthetically pleasing, and the accuracy and performance on it is, of course, very, very good. This is good for long range shooting, for target shooting, for hunting and that sort of thing. You know, it's probably not the best PRS system in the world, but most people aren't using AR-10s in PRS anyways. But the mid-weight profile barrel is actually one of my favorites. I think they did a really, really good job with it because it does fix my issue with SOCOM, which is just that it is so heavy, especially in 308s, 16-inch and longer barrels. It is oppressively heavy. So this entire system, when it's on a lower, is about 12.5, 13 pounds with an optic and the Whip Machine SME on the end, which adds 13 ounces on the end of it. And that's not bad. That's about as much as my 16-inch PSA Gen 2 upper receiver with a 16-inch SOCOM profile barrel. So with this one here, I retain about the same accuracy, and I get an extra 4 inches of barrel length and the extra velocity that comes with it. So good job on the barrel. I think that it looks great, it shoots great, and of course I haven't had any issues with it. Now, moving on from there, the gas block is just a very simple gas block. It's just a low profile steel gas block, nothing at all to write home about. Every time I get an upper receiver out of the box, I check everything on it for torque. So I checked the gas block on the barrel, and it was torqued down properly. Now in a DI system, there's not a lot of force going on your gas block, so there's not necessarily a need for it to be pinned. There's a lot of DI guns, military guns, that are not pinned, so it's not necessarily that it needs to be pinned, and on a target style gun it's not that big of a deal, but it was secured properly. And this is of course a rifle length system on here, which is great because it gives you the softest recoil impulse. And on top of that, Bear Creek Arsenal has been known for over gassing upper receivers. The first 2 upper receivers that I bought from them a couple years ago at this point were insanely overgassed, very, very overgassed. They were ejecting 5.56 at about 1 to 130, so pretty much just shooting straight forward, almost in line with the barrel of the gun. But this one here, very pleasantly surprised, ejects steel at about 330 to 4, and ejects brass, even really hot, like the AMAX ammunition, at about 3 o'clock. So in terms of how well it is gassed very, very well. And like I mentioned, I have had 0 malfunctions with it without cleaning over 500 rounds of 308. Most of that steel, about 120 rounds of Tula, 145 grain, 300 rounds or so of Wolf Military Classic, which is actually a poly-coated ammunition. It's a really good ammunition for its price. And then I have some match ammunition, some AMAX, and some basic M80 ball ammunition that I put through it. And again, without malfunction. And of course, it is a dream to shoot. Even without a muzzle brake on it, it is a very, very soft shooter. And as most of you probably noticed from the intro, most of the time I was shooting it with just the muzzle brake portion of the Whip Machine SME. And that, in conjunction with the fact that it naturally has a very soft recoil impulse and it's gassed very, very well, made this an extremely easy gun to shoot quickly. That on top of the fact that I mentioned that it's like 12, 13 pounds. So when you're running and gunning with it, There's a lot of weight, there's a good muzzle brake at the end of it, and it's gassed properly. That makes it very, very fast. Now it's a little bit slow to get turning in the direction that you want, of course, because it is very heavy, but the recoil impulse on it, especially with a muzzle brake, is very, very minimal. It's pretty much just chugging back and forth, and you're just watching the dot, in this case the chevron, bounce up and down on the target from about 7 to 10 yards away. So now let's go ahead and talk about the rail. Now the rail is another area where Bear Creek Arsenal has improved from their earlier iterations, especially from their earlier MLOK designs. So basically what we have here is we have an actual in-spec MLOK handguard that will actually fit your MLOK accessories really well, so you don't necessarily need to tap them in with like a rubber mallet, like on some of their earlier rails that I've had to do. On top of that, the mounting mechanism is much more modern, and it actually has locking tabs that lock into your upper receiver, which is awesome. So down here is our mounting method, which is just 2 YFS screws, 2 long screws that clamp down on your barrel nut, and that keeps the rail in place. And then to keep the rail from rotating left or right, we have 2 locking tabs on either side of your upper receiver that lock in with your upper receiver, and they don't have a lot of play on them whatsoever. And so when you take it on and off, it just slides on and off. It doesn't like wobble left or right, it just slides straight forward off, which is really nice. Now, this isn't really a gun that you would necessarily be mounting like a PEC or a laser up front or anything that you would need to keep zeroed, so I'm not too worried about the rail shifting because it's not really meant for that sort of thing. And if you were using iron sights or something like that, again, it doesn't really fit the envelope of the rifle. You can put on backup iron sights if you want, but this isn't really a build that you're going to be running around with all that much. It's not like a duty style rifle in any way. Now, a couple other nice things is that we have sling loop attachments, at least QD sling loop attachments, on the close to the receiver and then on the end of the handguard. The handguard, as I mentioned, is 15 inches long, which is perfectly long enough. I don't need a 20-inch rail on a 20-inch gun because that just puts more weight up front, and so I like to keep the weight a little further back. And of course, now if you're doing like extreme long range shooting and you want to mount your bipod as far forward as possible, then you might want a longer rail. But in my circumstance, where it's very difficult to get beyond like 600 yards in Washington State, having a 15-inch rail is nice. It's a high quality rail, it's very strong, very durable. It has 4 sling loop attachment points. It has MLOK on the 3, 6, and 9 positions, locking tabs, a very improved, a much more modern mounting method so that you can take the rail on and off much easier if that is something that you want to do. Now, moving back from there, we're going to talk about the upper receiver. Now, the upper receiver itself is probably my least favorite part of the build overall, just because the way that they make the side charging upper is they add a lot more meat to the upper receiver. So it's about twice as heavy as your standard like forged upper receiver would be, that's just cut for a regular BCG that doesn't have to have that side charging handle mounted to it. So the upper receiver is very bulky, it's very, very thick, and of course that means it's very, very strong, but again, you don't really need all that much all that extra material. So I think that there are ways that they could definitely machine down the upper receiver to save probably 6 or 7 ounces on the upper receiver itself. But again, we're looking at more of a budget upper receiver, even though it has a lot of high-end features. One of the lowest end or simplest, most budget features on it is its upper receiver. That being said, it does mount up really well to both of my lower receivers, so I don't have any issues with it in that regards. It's just that it's very heavy, it's very bulky, there's very little material actually removed, and so that's really my only gripe with it. Another small thing is that on the inside of the upper receiver itself, you could tell that there were some chatter marks inside from machining that wasn't quite done to spec, but other than that, it's cycled perfectly fine, and other than maybe a little bit more advanced wear and tear on the finish of your Bolt Carrier Group, it's not going to make any difference. Like I said, 500 rounds, 0 malfunctions, most of that with very, very cheap ammunition. So here it is in its finished form. This is on my PSA Gen 2 lower receiver, which of course I've had forever, and I generally run with my 16-inch upper receiver, but the 20-inch I think is going to stay on this guy because I like it so much. So at the end of the day, I think this upper receiver, when it was in stock, because of course my videos have excellent timing, so as of recording this video, The upper receiver is currently out of stock on Bear Creek Arsenal's website. I'll leave the SKU to it down in the description if you are interested, and I also have a coupon code. If you use Focustripp, you get free shipping on your order, so a nice little thing. But I believe the price was at about $530 for the complete upper receiver with the Bolt Carrier Group, of course. Now, $530 is a lot more than these things were going for, you know, 3, 4, 5 months ago, you know, where they're around $450. But $530 is still a very good price in the current marketplace. It's right in line with the most budget, like Palmetto State Armory upper receivers. But of course, here you have a side charging upper receiver with a 20-inch fluted barrel, which if you're going to try and find those feature sets in another manufacturer, you're going to be spending anywhere from $800 to $1,200 on the low end for those sorts of features. Like I said, it has functioned extremely well. So while I don't necessarily like the upper receiver, and I think that's one area where they will make improvements over time, and I think that's the one area that's kind of lacking in its aesthetics, because everywhere else it looks really good, looks really modern, and has really good function as well. But the upper receiver, if they could shave some weight off that, that would make it a killer deal. Still, $530, I still think it is a good deal. It is one of the best prices for a complete upper receiver on the market. And of course, if they go on sale and deals, I'm sure that you can find these for under $500 eventually when they come back in stock. So I do think that this upper receiver offers a good blend of really high quality features at a decent price point. So the reliability on it, the way it's set up, the gassing of the upper receiver is set up very, very well. It's top tier in that regard. There's really not much more that I can ask for in terms of the way it's gassed for non-suppressed shooting. If you're going to be doing a lot of suppressed shooting, then maybe you want to look into an adjustable gas block, but for the rest of us, the way it's set up from the factory is very, very good. The accuracy on it, while not amazing, I'm sure it will get you down into that 1 MOA territory, but it's not going to be that half MOA tack driver that you're going to have to spend double to triple the amount of money to get. In terms of features, like I said, you have a really nice MLOK rail, sling loop points, 15 inches. It's actually locked into the upper receiver, which is a nice improvement over their earlier rails. Side charging feature is really nice in my opinion. I like it on AR-10s. A long time ago, I did a video on a 10.5 inch side charger in 5.56. And I wasn't a huge fan of it. That one there was a little overgassed, and just the extra weight of the really heavy receiver on a 5.56, it was really noticeable. But in this configuration where you have a mid-weight fluted barrel, it's not quite as noticeable for an AR-10. That being said, I do like having the side charging in 308 just because generally speaking it's a little more finicky, it takes a little more force, so having a true forward assist and a lot more leverage on that charging handle, it's nice. And especially if you have to clear malfunctions, you can just rip on that thing and get that casing out of there. So to end off the video, guys, I think that it is still a very high value upper receiver, even though it is a little more expensive than some of the other things I've reviewed lately. For an AR-10, $500, $530 in this case with free shipping if you use my coupon code, is a really, really good deal, especially for one that runs as reliably as this and shoots as well. About 1 MOA is what you should be expecting if you're doing your part with match ammunition. So that's about it for the video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think of this rifle down below, and if there's something else that you want me to check out next time. Yeah, but that's about it. If you guys want to support the channel, all of those links are in the description. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.